The smell hit me before the truth did. It wasn't just dust or old wood. It was something darker, something human. And when I opened the basement door, I heard a voice that should never have been down there. Please, don't let her come back. That voice was my husband's. And my daughter had the only key. 2 weeks earlier, everything looked normal. My husband, Daniel, was strict but never cruel. At least that's what I believed. Our daughter, Lily, had changed over the past few months. She became distant, cold, always whispering on her phone and locking her bedroom door. I thought it was teenage rebellion. I told myself it was a phase. I told myself we were still a normal family. The first sign should have been the bruises. Daniel claimed he slipped in the garage. Then he said he fell down the stairs. But the fear in his eyes didn't look like a man who slipped. It looked like a man who was living in quiet terror. One night, I heard Lily screaming at him, her voice filled with rage I had never heard before. "You deserve this. You think you can control me forever." When I rushed in, she had already stormed upstairs. Daniel stood frozen, his hands shaking. "She's just angry," he whispered. But anger doesn't make someone flinch when their own daughter enters a room. Then Daniel disappeared. Lily said he left because he couldn't handle the pressure. She said he packed a bag and walked out. She said it so calmly it made my stomach twist. I called his phone. It was off. I called his office. He hadn't shown up in days. But Lily kept telling me to relax. "He's teaching you a lesson," she said once, smiling in a way that felt wrong. A smile that didn't belong to the child I raised. Days passed, then a week, then 2. No messages, no bank transactions, nothing. I wanted to call the police, but Lily grabbed my arm so tightly her nails left marks on my skin. "If you call anyone," she whispered, her voice cold and steady, "you'll regret it." I should have listened to the fear rising in my chest. But denial is powerful. It convinces you that horror only happens in other houses. On the 14th night, I went into the basement to look for old documents. We rarely used it. Lily hated going down there and always avoided it. Halfway down the stairs, I heard something, a faint scratching sound, like fingernails dragging against concrete. I froze, then came a whisper. Weak, broken. "Help!" My heart stopped beating for a second. The storage room door was locked from the outside with a heavy padlock I had never seen before. My hands shook as I searched for a key, but there was none. Then I remembered the silver key Lily had been wearing around her neck for 2 weeks. She said it was just fashion. I grabbed a hammer and smashed the lock until it snapped. The door creaked open, and the smell poured out so violently I almost fell back. Daniel was chained to a pipe. His beard had grown wild, his lips cracked, his eyes sunken and bloodshot. There were empty water bottles on the floor and a single dirty blanket. He looked at me like I was oxygen. "She said you'd never believe me?" he whispered, his voice barely alive. Behind me, I heard slow clapping. I turned and saw Lily standing at the top of the basement stairs. She was calm, too calm. "You finally found him?" she said, as if this was some kind of performance. My husband began to cry. "I didn't do anything," he begged. "She's lying." Lily's face hardened. "Shut up," she snapped, and the hatred in her voice felt older than her years. Then she looked at me and pulled out her phone. A video was already playing on the screen. "You always take his side," she said quietly. "Now you're gonna see who he really is." My chest tightened as she walked down the stairs, step by step, holding the phone out toward me. Whatever was on that screen was about to tear this family apart, and in that moment, standing between my chained husband and my unrecognizable daughter, I realized I was about to learn a truth that would change everything. The video flickered to life, the faint glow of the screen illuminating Lily's sharp, unyielding face. Daniel's eyes widened in panic as he struggled against the chains, but there was no strength left in him to break free. His mouth moved soundlessly, begging, pleading, and I realized I had never felt so powerless in my life. Lily's voice broke the silence. "Watch carefully. You need to understand everything." The first clip showed Daniel in the living room, smiling at me like the perfect husband, the perfect father. But then the angle shifted, and I saw something that made my stomach twist. Daniel wasn't smiling at me. He was laughing at someone else. Someone small, frightened, hiding under the couch. It was Lily. A younger version of her, maybe 6 or 7, trembling as Daniel raised his hand. My heart slammed against my ribs. "No," I whispered. "Well, it can't be." But the video continued. The images cut sharply from one scene to the next, Daniel yelling at her, pinching her arms when she cried, mocking her in front of the neighbors, calling her worthless. Every memory I had of minor arguments and small scoldings now painted itself in a sinister, horrifying light. Lily's small, quiet moments of rebellion suddenly made sense. She hadn't been a spoiled child, she had been surviving. Surviving a man whose own face now appeared on the screen as the monster hiding behind the mask of fatherhood. Daniel's eyes met mine, filled with fear and confusion. It wasn't like that. He stammered, but I couldn't hear him. The video was relentless. The screams of my daughter echoed through my mind as each clip played the lies, the betrayal, the manipulation. My hands trembled. My chest felt as if it had been crushed. And Lily, she stood there like a director of a horror I had never wanted to see. She wasn't smiling now. She was calm, collected, terrifyingly intelligent. She stepped closer, her heels clicking softly against the concrete floor. "You always told me he was a good man," she said, tilting her head. You wanted me to forgive him. You wanted me to pretend everything was fine, but I can't. You wouldn't have believed me anyway. So I had to take matters into my own hands. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. The room felt smaller, tighter. Daniel was crying now, tears streaming down his face, but Lily's presence made him shrink into himself, a child trapped in fear again. Please, he begged, voice cracking. She's my daughter, she doesn't understand. She understands perfectly. Lily interrupted sharply. She just knows what has to happen. She turned her gaze to me. And now you will see, because you are part of this too. You always ignored the signs, you always turned away. And now it's too late to look the other way. The video shifted again. This time, the footage was older, grainy from years ago. It showed Daniel doing things that were unspeakable. Humiliations, punishments, moments that made my blood run cold. Lily's voice overlaid the images, calm, methodical. This is what I've been living with. This is why I had no choice. My hand shook, and I felt a rage I had never known before, not at Lily, not yet, but at the man I had married, the man I had trusted, the man I had defended. Daniel shrank into himself, sobbing quietly, almost inaudibly. Lily stepped closer to him, the video still playing on her phone, casting shadows on the walls. And now, she whispered, you will face me, you will face yourself, you will see what your actions have created. She paused, watching the screen as though savoring the tension. My heart pounded as I realized the next move would change everything. The basement felt suffocating. The concrete walls, the chains, the smell of old sweat and rot, it all pressed in on me. Lily's eyes were fixed on me now. You think I'm cruel, she said softly, almost like she was pitying me. But I am justice. I am the consequence you refuse to see. And you are finally going to understand that ignoring the pain of a child comes with a price. Daniel looked at me desperately. Please, don't let her. His words faltered. He knew there was no one to intervene. Not really. Not anymore. And I realized with a sinking feeling that I was trapped in this horror just as much as he was. My own daughter had become the arbiter of justice, and every instinct screamed that this was bigger than any of us had imagined. Lily's fingers brushed the screen of her phone. The images flickered, paused, zoomed. Daniel flinched with every detail. My mind raced. I had raised her, loved her, thought I knew her, but everything I thought I understood about my family had just shattered into pieces. Lily was no longer a child, no longer a teenager. She was a force shaped by years of fear and neglect, and I wasn't sure the world could contain her. The video ended abruptly. The screen went black. Silence pressed down on the basement like a physical weight. Daniel was sobbing quietly, his face buried in his hands. I was trembling, and Lily, she didn't move. She stood perfectly still, watching both of us like a hawk observing prey. My throat ached as I whispered, what now? Lily smiled again, but this time it wasn't the calm smile I had seen before. It was a calculated, almost terrifying smile. Now, she said, you see why I had to do this. And now it's time for the reckoning. She tilted her head and took a slow step toward Daniel. He shrank back, the chains rattling. You don't get to talk. You don't get to explain. You only get to feel what it's like to be powerless. I felt bile rise in my throat. Every instinct screamed at me to stop her, to intervene, to pull my daughter back to safety. But something in me paused, because I had seen the truth and part of me understood the storm that had been building in her for years. I had ignored it, I had denied it, and now I had to watch as it unfolded. And maybe that was part of the lesson she wanted me to learn. She raised her hand, holding the phone with the video still playing on loop. Daniel flinched at the sound of her calm voice narrating the images, each word a needle in his conscience. I could see the fear in his eyes, the realization that nothing could save him now. And yet, a part of me could not look away, could not stop watching. Because the tension, the terror, the inevitable confrontation, it was gripping. It was mesmerizing. Lily's next words cut through the heavy air. You thought love would protect you. You thought I would always obey. You thought your secrets would stay buried. But now, it's too late. You can feel it, can't you? That fear, that helplessness, that's what I've lived with my whole life. She took another deliberate step closer to Daniel, her heels echoing in the empty basement, each tap like a countdown. And soon, you will understand. Not just today, but forever. Daniel's chains rattled as he tried to speak, tried to defend himself, but Lily's stare silenced him. It wasn't rage, it wasn't anger, it was precision. Cold, calculated, merciless. And in that moment, I realized that revenge wasn't just about anger. It was about truth, and Lily had finally become the truth incarnate. I stepped back, my mind racing. Could I stop this? Should I? Or was this a reckoning long overdue? And then I saw the glint in her eyes, a mixture of triumph, sorrow, and inevitability. She had become the master of this moment, and I, along with Daniel, was trapped inside it. The basement was no longer just concrete and shadows. It had become a theater of reckoning, a place where every secret, every betrayal, every ignored plea would finally be confronted. She lifted the phone high, showing both of us the images one last time. Everything you see, it's just the beginning, she said, her voice low and steady, almost hypnotic. I am not done. And neither are you. The air felt heavier. My chest burned. Daniel's sobs grew louder, desperate, pleading. And Lily, she just stood there, calm as a storm, watching the culmination of years of suppressed pain unfold before her. I realized, with a chill that ran straight to my bones, that nothing would ever be the same. This basement, this moment, had become the epicenter of a family shattered, a justice exacted, and a vengeance meticulously planned. And as I looked at my daughter, I understood one terrifying truth. Sometimes the ones we love most are the ones who will show us the hardest lessons in the hardest ways possible. And in that basement, surrounded by shadows and echoes of fear, the story was far from over. The basement was silent now, but the silence was heavy, loaded with every unspoken word, every hidden truth, every fear that had been simmering for years. Lily stood at the top of the stairs, the phone clutched tightly in her hand, her eyes glowing with a strange, terrifying calm. Daniel was trembling, the chains rattling as he tried to move. His face was pale, his lips cracked, eyes wide with panic. I felt a shiver run down my spine. I had never seen him like this. Not even in his worst anger. He looked completely powerless. And I realized, painfully, that this was a side of my husband I had never wanted to see. Lily's voice broke the silence. "Do you remember every time you told me I was worthless?" she asked, almost whispering, as if she were savoring the memory. "Every time you mocked me, every time you punished me for being me, you thought no one was watching. But I was always watching. And now you will watch too." Her eyes flicked to me. "You, mother, watched too. You saw it. You pretended it wasn't happening. You believed in his mask. But masks fall eventually." Daniel's sobs grew louder. "Please, please don't do this," he begged. "She's my daughter. I was trying to, I didn't." He choked, his voice breaking. I flinched. I wanted to cover his mouth, to stop him from saying more. But something told me to stay silent. I needed to see this unfold, to understand why my daughter had become this force, this embodiment of justice I had never imagined. Lily slowly descended the stairs, each step deliberate, echoing against the concrete walls. My heart raced. The chains rattled as Daniel tried to recoil. He looked at me, eyes pleading. "Help me," he whispered, but I knew I couldn't. Not yet, not now. This moment wasn't about saving him. It was about facing the truth I had ignored, the truth I had denied, and the truth my daughter had carried alone for years. She stopped just a few feet from him. Her expression softened for a fraction of a second, but it was immediately replaced by something darker. "You took everything from me," she said quietly. "My childhood, my innocence, my trust. You think apologies can fix that. You think tears can erase the years of fear. You were wrong. I survived because I had to. I survived because no one else would. And now it's time you survive too. The way I did." Daniel's sobs turned into pleas, fragmented words that made no sense. His hands clutched at the chains, but they were useless. He was trapped in every way possible, physically, emotionally, morally. He had spent years teaching my daughter obedience, control, fear. And now, he was learning something else, what it feels like to be powerless, exposed, judged by the one he had underestimated most. Lily lifted the phone, the screen illuminating the room like a harsh spotlight. The video began again, looping the moments of his cruelty, his manipulation, his lies. Each scene was a dagger, cutting through the illusion of the man I had called my husband. I could see Daniel's face twisting in horror, recognition dawning with each frame. The chains weren't just metal, they were the weight of his guilt, made physical by my daughter's meticulous planning. "You always believed in hiding behind your charm," Lily said, pacing slowly around him like a predator circling its prey. "But charm doesn't erase what you did. And now, neither will pleading or excuses." I watched. I remember. I never forgot. And now you will remember too. I swallowed hard. Part of me wanted to intervene. Part of me wanted to run and grab her, to stop this madness before it went too far. But another part, a quieter, darker part, knew this was inevitable. This was the reckoning he had always deserved, and I couldn't stop it, not without lying to myself again, not without pretending that everything was normal when it had never been. Lily's hand moved to the chains. "Feel that?" she asked softly, almost tenderly. "This is what it's like to be trapped by your own actions. This is what it's like to have no control. This is what I felt every single day you hurt me." Daniel flinched violently, jerking against the chains. His sobs were louder now, racking his entire body. The desperation in his eyes made me ache, not for him, but for the years my daughter had endured alone. She paused, her gaze flicking to me once more. "And you," she said, voice low and dangerous, "you thought you were protecting him. You thought your silence was loyalty. But silence is complicity. You failed me. And now you get to see what that failure looks like." Her lips curved into a small, terrifying smile. I felt a mix of fear and awe. My daughter had become something unstoppable, something I could not contain, something I had underestimated for years. Then, almost silently, she leaned in closer to Daniel, the phone still illuminating the basement like a ghostly lantern. "Do you remember the night I tried to tell you?" she whispered. "Do you remember the night I screamed and begged, and you laughed at me? Do you remember the night you told me I was imagining things?" His sobs turned into incoherent stutters. "Do you remember it?" Her voice grew sharper, cutting through the air like a knife. Because I do. I remember every second, every word, every lie. And now it's your turn to remember every second of your own fear. She raised her hand higher, and I could see it trembling slightly, but not with fear, with controlled anticipation. She was preparing for something, and I could sense it. The tension in the room was suffocating. Daniel's chest heaved, his eyes darting to me as if begging for intervention. But I remained frozen. I couldn't step in, not yet. I couldn't stop the reckoning that had been building for years. Do you feel it? Lily asked quietly, almost rhetorically. The fear. The helplessness. The realization that you are not in control. He nodded weakly, tears streaming down his face, his body shaking. This is what I lived with, she continued, every day. And now it's amplified. You will know what it feels like to be powerless. She moved around him slowly, deliberately, letting her presence dominate the space. Daniel's sobs grew louder, almost unbearable to hear. I felt my own chest tighten as I watched him, as I realized how deeply these years of abuse had shaped my daughter into the person standing before me. Strong, merciless, smart, calculated. She wasn't cruel because she wanted to be. She was precise because she had survived. Then she paused, her hand hovering over the phone. And yet, she said softly, almost a whisper, there is still a choice. A choice for you, mother, to finally see what I've endured. A choice for you to finally understand. And for you, she turned her gaze fully to Daniel. A choice to face the consequences, every single one of them. The basement seemed to shrink around us, the shadows thickening, the air heavy with anticipation. Daniel's eyes darted between us, desperation in every glance. I swallowed hard, my throat tight, my hands shaking. I realized in that moment that the final act was near, but not yet. The tension, the suspense, the horror, it was all a slow, deliberate build. And I was witnessing it, powerless to stop it, powerless to intervene, yet unable to look away. Lily's voice dropped even lower, almost a whisper that carried through the basement like a cold wind. This is the moment you should have feared all along. The moment your actions or inactions have led to. The moment where truth, justice, and revenge collide, and there is no escape. There is no pleading. There is no forgiveness, not yet. Her fingers brushed the chains again. Daniel flinched violently. His sobs echoed off the walls. And I understood, finally, the magnitude of what she had orchestrated. She had turned years of pain into power. She had turned fear into control. And she had turned silence into judgment. And in that basement, surrounded by shadows, fear, and raw emotion, I realized that the story wasn't just about revenge. It was about truth, it was about justice, it was about survival. And when the final moment came, it would be unforgettable. The room held its breath, the chains rattled, Daniel trembled. And Lily, she smiled again, small, precise, terrifyingly calm. And then, with deliberate slowness, she raised the phone once more, the screen casting her face in stark, pale light. Now, she whispered, "Hoots, time for the final lesson." Lily's eyes glinted in the pale light of the phone screen. The basement felt smaller, suffocating, the shadows stretching like fingers toward Daniel and me. He was trembling, chains rattling, face white as chalk. "Please," he croaked, voice barely audible. Don't do this to me." But Lily didn't flinch. She didn't hesitate. "You should have listened," she said softly, almost like she was speaking to the walls, to the air, to every moment in our home where injustice had been hidden. "You thought I was just a child. You thought I would forgive. You thought I would forget. But I remembered everything." Daniel tried to speak again, voice cracking. I made mistakes I didn't mean." "You didn't mean..." Lily snapped, stepping closer, each movement precise, controlled, deliberate. "You didn't mean..." "Every bruise, every insult, every lie you didn't mean, you were teaching me fear. And now you will feel it." I couldn't move. My chest was tight. My hands shook. I wanted to stop her, to intervene, but the truth in her words, the raw force of years of suffering, stopped me. I had failed my daughter once by denying what she endured. I couldn't fail her again by pretending this moment wasn't necessary. She held the phone up again, replaying clips of Daniel's abuse. The small moments that seemed insignificant at the time, now magnified into a tapestry of cruelty. His face twisted with each frame. Tears streaked his pale cheeks, sobs racking his body. He was utterly powerless. And in that helplessness, I could see the weight of every year of neglect, every cruel word, every secret fear of my daughter. "You see now, don't you?" Lily whispered. "This is what I felt every second, every day. And now it's your turn." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, worn notebook, one I didn't recognize at first. Opening it, she revealed pages filled with meticulously written accounts, every incident, every detail, every moment Daniel had hurt her. She read aloud, slowly, calmly, without malice, but with the precision of someone recounting evidence in a court of law. "You laughed at me when I cried," she said, turning the notebook so I could see the words. "You mocked me when I begged. You punished me when I needed protection. And you," she looked at me, "you closed your eyes and pretended it didn't happen. Now you see. You understand. And neither of you will ever forget it." Daniel's sobs became desperate wails. I can't, please." Lily raised a hand, signaling him to stop speaking. "Silence," she said. "It's time to listen." Listen and understand. She stepped back, letting the weight of her presence dominate the room. Her calmness made the basement feel like a courtroom, and she the judge, jury, and executioner. Then, slowly, she walked around him, circling him like a predator, each movement deliberate. I lived in fear, she whispered. Every day I learned to hide, I learned to survive, and I waited for the right moment, and now you are in my world, my rules, my justice. Daniel began shaking violently. I was your father! You're my daughter! Exactly, Lily said softly. I am your daughter, and this is what I became because of you. Every tear, every bruise, every insult shaped me. And now, you will see the full truth of what you created. She pressed a button on the phone and a new clip began. It was footage I had never seen before. Security cameras Daniel had installed for safety in the house. I watched in horror as the camera caught him berating Lily when she was just 8, forcing her to clean floors for hours, yelling at her when she cried. Her tiny form trembling, his face red with anger. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, to run, to erase this nightmare. But I couldn't. She lowered the phone and looked at me. You always said you wanted to protect me, but protection without action is useless. I was alone, and you let him shape me into what I am today. Now you see it, you feel it. You cannot turn away. Daniel's sobs turned into groans of desperation. Forgive me. Please, I can't take this. Lily's eyes softened for only a fraction of a second. Then they hardened. Forgiveness isn't what I seek. Justice is. Understanding is. Fear, maybe, and now finally reckoning. She moved closer to him, fingers brushing the chains, and the metallic sound echoed through the basement like a drumbeat. Daniel flinched. Please, I'll do anything. You should have done everything, she whispered. But you didn't. So now I decide. She paused. The silence was suffocating. And then, slowly, she turned to me. Mother, you need to see this clearly. You need to remember that your silence contributed to this. You let him hide behind charm and smiles. You let me suffer. Now, you are witness. Witness everything. And maybe, finally, you will understand me. Daniel's sobs became desperate screams, pleading for mercy, but Lily didn't flinch. She raised the phone high again, showing him every clip, every written note, every evidence of cruelty. Each word, each frame, each memory pressed down on him like a physical weight. His body trembled violently, and I felt a chill run through me as I watched the transformation of fear, the way the powerless had become fully aware of the consequences of their actions. Then Lily stepped back and exhaled slowly. Her eyes scanned the basement, landing on both of us. This is the moment of truth, she said. The moment where you see everything you did, and the moment where you realize there is no undoing it. There is no escape, not for either of you. I swallowed hard, my heart pounded. Daniel's sobs echoed, raw and unrelenting. And Lily, she was terrifying in her calm, in her precision, in the way she had turned years of fear and pain into power. I realized something I had never understood before. Revenge isn't just about punishment. Revenge is truth. Revenge is revelation. Revenge is balance restored. She placed the phone down on a small table, letting the light fall across her face. You will never forget this day, she said softly, almost gently. And maybe one day you'll understand why I did it. But for now, feel it. Feel everything you created. Feel it until it burns into your memory. Because this is the consequence of your choices. Daniel's sobs had quieted into shaky gasps. He had no words left. He had no defenses. His pride, his anger, his power, they had all crumbled. And in their place, only realization, fear, and the knowledge that the person he had underestimated most, the small child he had tormented, had become the one holding control over his fate. I stepped forward slowly, unable to look away, unable to interfere, yet compelled to witness. Lily turned to me one last time. Do you see now? She asked. Do you finally see what it feels like to be powerless, to be ignored, to be silenced? This is the world I survived. And now it is your world too, even if only for this moment. The basement was silent except for the faint hum of the phone. Daniel's eyes met mine, filled with despair, with disbelief, with a raw, terrifying awareness of everything he had done wrong. And then Lily smiled a small, chilling smile. And now, she whispered, the reckoning is complete. She lifted the phone one last time, the screen glowing like a spotlight on the stage of our lives. And in that glow, I saw the full power of what she had become, unstoppable, unyielding, and finally free. Daniel collapsed to the floor, trembling, defeated, powerless. And I realized that the person I had feared most in this moment wasn't my husband. It wasn't even the fear itself. It was the unstoppable force of my daughter's truth, her courage, and her precision. She had taken years of pain, of fear, of betrayal, and transformed it into the ultimate lesson: the ones we hurt the most are capable of the greatest justice. The basement was no longer a place of darkness. It was a place of revelation, of justice, and of raw, undeniable truth. And as Lily looked at us, her parents calm, precise, unshakable, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The reckoning had ended, but the scars, the lessons, and the memories, they would last forever.